which is supposed to be working with the Microfinance Support Center to reactualize the distribution of the revolving fund of 22 billion to the SACCO. Mr. Paul.
I thought that we would allow a few minutes because we had said that this meeting will start at 4, and some of our people, our technical people who are supposed to participate, are not here right now. But since this was to inform the media, we can start as we wait for those people to also arrive, since they are to participate. I want you, my colleagues, ministers, and our chairperson for our commission, Mr. Amanya Mshega, and your deputy, Samvawara, and other heads of other agencies of the education sector who are present here this afternoon, for making the time to join us as we try to explain some of the issues about this lockdown or partial lockdown that has not been yet lifted, because people are concerned about education, precisely because education concerns all people, and we don't want our people to remain ignorant of why we have not opened the schools yet. As I was saying just a little while ago, recently I tried to explain to the young people who I have been trying to dialogue with about what is happening in the country and in their lives as they grow. I tried to explain about why we have not opened schools. Because we have been discussing different topics every week, but as they respond to what I've said any particular week, they tend to come back by many of them saying, why don't you just open the schools? Why don't you just open the schools? And I thought I shouldn't ignore that question. I thought I should respond to them and try to inform them why we have not opened the schools. I have tried to ask them why they think we haven't opened the schools, because it is the easiest thing to do in the circumstances. The schools are there, the teachers are there, the teachers are being paid monthly their salaries when they are not working. So I said it would be the easiest thing to do, to open schools, because we're doing all other things that would entail opening of schools, but what we are not doing is opening those schools. Why do you think we are not doing that? It's not as if we are saving money because schools are closed. Government is not saving anything. So I said, would you agree that government has refused to open schools simply because we consider the lives of our children more important than even education, because education comes to those who have life. When you no longer have life, you can't have education or anything else. And I was telling partners now who've just been here that it is important that people try to understand where Uganda is coming from. Uganda as a country suffered so much during those years of HIV and AIDS, so much, when almost every family lost a member. And many families lost the parents. I was in an area where we had to take care of orphans that were left by these parents who died. HIV and AIDS would kill both parents, and so the children would be left in the house with nobody to take care of them. Those who had grandmothers, you would find little children hiding in the banana plantations, holding on the skirts of the grandmothers, and grandmothers hiding because they thought they were cursed or something was wrong with them. And I was telling these people that I will never forget when I went to Masaka and I found houses closed, or a whole village closed, because people had died. And we can't fail to remember those days. So with COVID-19 now, which they say now kills the elderly, we don't want now a whole new issue of having of the elderly now dying again and leaving the children, and we have to start picking up these young people who have nobody to take care of them, and nobody wants to consider that. But when the president locked down the second time, some children who were sick did go home with COVID-19 and infected the elders in their families. And we know people by name who died because their children brought COVID-19 to these homes. So when people push, why don't you open schools? Why don't you open schools? Because now when schools were closed and they went home and towns didn't have so much traffic and so much activity, then COVID-19 goes down. But it is possible because some of the doctors and scientists have been cautioning us and saying the third wave can come around again. And so we thought that it is perhaps better to delay education of living people. And when this has passed, people will go to school. And we will be then assured of life to continue going forward. That's why I wanted the media to understand why we have chosen not to open at least lower primary and lower secondary and higher secondary, even opening universities and tertiary institutions who are in boarding, who are living in schools, who are not going home every evening, and who we hope will be vaccinated by the time they go back to universities. That's the first point that I wanted to explain to the media. We have had time for our technical people to explain this. Please allow me to take off this mask so that maybe I can see. We have had some of our technical people who have been working with you and explaining these things time and time again. So you do know, but I thought that maybe you are saying, as my young people have been asking me, why don't you be the one to explain it? Now I thought I'd explain it myself. Secondly, opening of schools is not just a Ministry of Education and Sports affair only. Government must be involved. We have a national task force which discuss the issues of COVID-19 on a weekly basis and informs cabinet. And so when cabinet is convinced that this is the right thing to do, then cabinet advises the president and the president advises the country. That's what's been happening. It's not just our affair as a sector alone. So when the president addressed the public last, he informed the country that universities and tertiary institutions will open by 1st November. And that's what is going to happen. And that lower primary, secondary will open at the beginning of the year. The date of opening in the beginning of the year will be communicated when it's agreed upon by government, so that everybody now knows. I don't know why people continue to talk about the calendar and opening and this and the other. That has been explained, and it's as simple as that. Now, secondly, there has been questions about home study materials. Home study materials, we are the ones who devised this method so that our children don't sit home and do nothing in this period. We didn't know even how long it would be, but we thought that when these children are home, they must study. So we printed the home study materials because we knew that not all of them in our rural areas in the country can be accessed by radios or televisions or online materials. So we printed them as booklets. And at the very first time, the initial time, we printed the materials worth 6 billion, just over 6 billion Uganda shillings, funded by Uganda government. And then we realized the materials we printed were not enough after we had distributed them. They were not enough. But soon after, we got a grant from the Global Partnership for Education, worth $14.7 million. And we printed more materials, but the materials were, we didn't use all that money for materials only. Of that amount, just $5.8 million was spent on developing and supplying home study materials. And those materials went to about over 2 million children or P5, P6, and P7, and then another over $1 million, printed more materials for O-level learners, making up a total of 27,363 primary schools and 5,124 secondary schools located in 135 local government districts. This exercise was concluded in April 2021 by supplying materials, this time directly to schools. But there were schools which had been closed by UNEB because they were doing marking in those schools. So we found that some of those schools couldn't get those materials. And so later on, we had to prepare yet again to produce more materials. And government, by God's grace, has provided more money, but this has been long overdue because we wanted to do it earlier on, but we couldn't get the money. But we got this money in this very financial year, some 48.5 billion, and this was to do more home study materials. This is targeting all those who didn't get from the materials we had printed and supplied. So these ones are supposed to be distributed when are they supposed to be distributed? PS.
Thank you, Mama. We are finalizing the printing. Most of the suppliers have informed us that they have done 90% of the work, and we expect that in the next 2 weeks we should start deliveries, at least for lot 1, 2, and lot 3. There is a fourth lot for Eastern region that had some challenges. We were not able to get a suitable supplier, so we had to retender. And that is just about to be signed. We've just concluded the procurement for the fourth lot for Eastern region. But the other lots, we expect them to begin distribution in the next 2 weeks, because most of the printing has been completed.
Okay, and the materials are booklets that contain all the work that these children should be.
Yes, Mama, this is the material for the entire year for those classes that we are printing. Yes,
so when these children get these materials, they get all the work that they're supposed to do at school, so that they can study and when they come back to class, they will be revising what they will be studying at home in order to have exams when the time is right. So that's why we are confident that the situation is not really hopeless. I personally feel strongly that we'll be surprised that this situation is not going to be hopeless as people think, because the exams we have had in the results we received early this year showed that children did very well. Actually, did better than they did in 2019 when they were at school. The universities which are graduating now are doing very well. So I want to encourage you so that you can help us to encourage the public that they shouldn't really feel that this is a hopeless situation. Our children are safe. They are at home. That's what that's what the whole purpose was about, that they are not at school to catch COVID-19. Unfortunately, we get to hear how girls are getting pregnant, how they are being forced to get married, and so on and so forth. But still, they have life, which is really what is most important of all. Now, the other point that has been in the public arena is about the private schools and private teachers. Private teachers got a donation from the president, and they have failed to access that money ever since. And I want to tell you, as I have done before, that that is not because the Ministry of Education has not tried to help them. When that money first came, I personally met the private teachers, at least the leaders, and we discussed how they can get this money. And it didn't sound as if they really knew how best this money could get to them. So we got a committee to work with our former PS, and also Honorable Seninde, when she was here, she was working with our former PS and working with private teachers for some time. And they didn't manage to conclude that issue, how the money could get to all the private teachers in the country. So we then asked them now to take it on themselves and form an association, a private association for private teachers, private school teachers. And they've been working together to find a way as to how their money can get to them. And I wanted to ask Mr. Mlindwa, if he's here now, to please inform the media and people present here of the chronology of this issue of the teachers' money, because some people try to make it sound as if the Ministry of Education is really not helping. It is not, there is a crisis in the Ministry of Education. There is no crisis in this ministry, I want to inform you people. Because you wanted us to say the government will now buy off the private schools and the money will reach the teachers in this way, but we wanted them to participate themselves and form that agency that would take the money. We wanted them to take their money and deal with it themselves. We didn't even want it to go to stay with the microfinance support center. because there had been issues there, microfinance support center with money for the government schools, teachers. Before, there was an issue there. So I personally wanted this money to go to an agency that is formed by the private schools teachers and deal with it themselves. The money is still with the Ministry of Finance up to this day. So please, Mr. Mlindwa, help me and inform the media so that they can inform the public.
Thank you. On the 3rd, August increased to 20 billion. Initially it was 2, but then His Excellency the President increased the fund to 20 to support the teachers during this COVID situation. But Mama, one issue we need to underscore is His Excellency the President was very categorical and was very clear. He said, I'm putting this money in the private schools, teachers' circles. And that's what made it not easy for teachers, because teachers thought it was a refund. They would sit in the corner and share. But the moment His Excellency the President said in circles, it meant it was supposed to be a revolving fund. Mama, on the 3rd August, the PSST wrote to the Executive Director, Microfinance Support Center, instructing the center to raise 20 billion to support teacher circles in private schools. Mama, there was money there. According to the letter, the instruction was that they could attach some of that money to put into the teachers' circles. On the 25th September, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education and Sports, wrote to the Executive Director, Microfinance Support Center, advising on the modality of disbursement to private school teachers' circles. Because you remember, Mama, a meeting we had in State House, they had already started forming almost their own circles, and there were issues. So the PS then guided that we should be involved to guide you on, first of all, the beneficiaries and the modality of disbursement. In a meeting held on 25th September 2020, Mama, at State House, which you chaired, you assigned Honorable Seninde to chair a committee of stakeholders who included Ministry of Education itself, where these teachers are under the ministry, Ministry of Finance and Planning and Economic Development, 37 private schools associations and unions, Mama, and some of them are deformed just a few days after the pronouncement of His Excellency the President. And UNATU was also part of the discussions, and private schools proprietors associations were part of those meetings. We held quite a number of meetings, which were chaired by Honorable Seninde. And in about 3 meetings, we had even the minister who is in charge of microfinance. I remember Honorable Kasoro attending about 3 meetings. Mama, it was discovered that the 7 groups of the teachers were not representative. None of them would had a representation of even just 1,000. So it was resolved in the meeting, Mama, that we form, or they form, a representative association. Mama, after that, in that very meeting, again the meeting guided that as we form the structure, the national structure, we can go ahead and try to identify the fund manager. And the groups that were therein agreed to engage Walimu as the fund manager. But also, Mama, as you may also know, Walimu at that time had some issues. So members agreed in the meeting that due diligence should be carried out on Walimu. And the report was produced, and it wasn't very good to guide a decision to have that money go to Walimu. But in the meantime, the structure was forming. And here teachers were mobilized. The PS then wrote a letter to the district education officers through the chief administrative officers who mobilized the teachers in all the schools, and they formed their associations at school level. Then they had representatives who were sent to the district, and they formed district associations. Then the district sent 2 representatives to the national. And Mama, this was done by the chief administrative officers, and we did not accept any nomination which was not through the chief administrative officers. We have files and files of the names that were submitted. Mama, the chief administrative officers forwarded the district representative to the national, and on 19th March 2021, a national delegates conference was held at Kolo SS and was presided over by the chair herself, Honorable Seninde, and our current PS was also there. And before we went for that conference, Mama, we had to seek legal guidance from the Attorney General. So we had 2 representatives from the Solicitor General's office who attended and guided that meeting. And UNATU was also involved. A national interim executive was formed to come up with a constitution. All this happened with the guidance of the Attorney General, Mama, like I've already indicated. On 1st July 2021, the National Assembly was convened again to approve the constitution, which they had assigned the committee, the interim committee, to work on. Throughout all these meetings, all associations and unions were involved, and they were signatory to the proceedings of these meetings. The National Association, NAPSTA, was formed and signed an MOU with the Ministry of Education and Sports to guide in the guidance of the management of the fund. Other associations clearly indicated they are not part of the structures. They only said they would only come in on the issue of the money because they were also beneficiaries, and it was agreed. NAPSTA, the National Private Schools Teachers Association that was formed, presented a resolution to the ministry recommending Microfinance Support Center to manage their fund. On the 23rd August, the Permanent Secretary wrote a letter introducing the association to Microfinance Support Center. Mama, on the 23rd August, you yourself wrote to Minister of Finance requesting to transfer the fund to Microfinance Support Center, the 20 billions. However, on the 25th August 2021, one group called the Coalition of Private Schools Associations and Unions wrote to Minister of Finance cautioning and stopping the transfer of the money to Microfinance Support Center because they were claiming they were not part of the discussions that had taken place. Mama, on the 30th September, which was yesterday, the Permanent Secretary organized a meeting and had all the groups sit together. And in the meeting, Mama, they agreed to form a small committee which would engage in our Microfinance Support Center to see how the money is disbursed. And we left the meeting with an understanding that they are going to agree, then come up with an agreed position and submit it to the PS. But Mama, what happened when we left them in the boardroom, they disagreed and on the constitution of the committee. Some wanted to have a bigger representation, others wanted to have as many. So when they disagreed and we put it to them, we were very clear that when you disagree, then the ministry or government will have to look at another alternative way of making sure that the beneficiaries, the teachers, receive this money. So, Mama, that's where we are, and that's what we have done over time. We have done our level best to make sure that the targeted teacher benefits from this fund. I submit, Mama.
No clear method that could be used to distribute this money to these teachers. And it's a problem. It's a sad story because we know that they need this money. The money is lying there, but they have failed to agree on a method that can help them. So that problem should not be blamed on the Ministry of Education. We have not touched their money. We never have imposed our own ideas on them. We wanted them to deal with their issues democratically on their own and take their money and use it as it is theirs. But they still haven't been able to solve that problem. So that is the problem with the private teachers' donation that came from the president. I think perhaps those are the issues I thought you needed to hear today, and those are the explanations. So I want to ask you to help us. Please go and inform the public with the information we have given you. I can also say something about the general attitude that people have had about teachers, that you keep hearing about teachers, how sorry their situation is, and you know, because they are not in schools, because schools are open, the teachers have nothing to do. Now they are border riders, now they are this and the other. But you see, teachers are the people who are supposed to sharpen the understanding of our country, teach the population of this land. And so we should look at them as people who have the capacity to change their way of life and still manage to live. Because they have the capacity to understand. They are the ones who are supposed to teach others. When they have a problem here, they can go and manage to start something different here and do it and live. Especially in a country like ours, which is an agricultural country. Our teachers have been receiving their salaries. They can go and invest it in agriculture and have an income, a good income. Because they are supposed to, we look to teachers. Teachers, I've been telling teachers every time I have an opportunity that they were not supposed to just educate children, individual children in classrooms. They are supposed to educate villages and people and lead them to live better lives, because the teachers are the ones who have the knowledge as to how best life can be transformed to live a better life. So I don't know whether it is the media or whether it is the politicians or who are trying to really minimize what the teaching profession is. The teachers are able people. They can go back to the villages and transform villages, because that's who they are in society. So please inform our public that they should not make teachers be looked at as people to sympathize with, to feel sorry about. Nothing has happened to them. They are running away from disease. All of us are trying to find different ways of living with, but they are not crippled. Nothing has happened to the teachers. They can transform their lives where they are. Thank you for listening to me. I don't know whether you have...
Allow me to consult you on the way forward.
Do they have any questions? Because people can come in and also answer some of the questions if they have any.
Okay, thank you. We are ready to take up questions. Mama is very generous today. She's going to take, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. To return to school because some schools had declined to toe that line. So what is going to happen to some of these girls who are in those schools when the schools reopen?
If they are not functioning anymore, the children will transfer to other schools. It's the only possible way to do that, to go to school. Because government schools are in every parish, in every sub-county, and accessible by all. If we find that schools, that the numbers of learners are becoming too many for schools, then we will do the double shifts so that some learners can go in the morning and end at midday, and others start after midday and go on to about 5, so that all can access education. Because there may be problems about those schools that have closed. But one hopes that it won't be forever. We hope that they will be able to open at some stage when their problems have been dealt with. Those schools can reopen again. But for a start, when they are not opened, then children will go to the schools that are close to their homes. Say, now government is going to have to take it up and show them the way and say, perhaps now, if you can't really manage your own or form your own method. Oh, you said something about pregnant girls to return to school. Sorry, I didn't hear the pregnant girls. The pregnant girls, the policy has been, and it's been here before, the pregnant girls go home, have their babies. At a time when they can leave them home, they go back to school. That's the policy, and you know it. That's a policy. There can't be schools that refuse them. They can't bring children to school, obviously, but they have their children. They will breastfeed them, they get to a place where they can leave them home with their parents or their grandparents, and they can go to school and they'll be accepted at school. On those who get pregnant. And if there is anybody who wants to add something among my colleagues, please feel free to add.
Dr. Kedris?
Actually responded. The policy has been on for years that children who end up getting pregnant, life has not ended, and they can access school again. What I seem to pick from her question was that some schools, especially the religious ones, don't accept them back. But you don't have to go back to the same school. I think what is critical is that you go back to school. In a way, it's actually better to go to a school where you are starting afresh than going back to a school where they know you had problems and probably you get stigmatized. So I think it shouldn't be a big issue. I think all of us should continue to show that these girls have a future and they can return to school. Thank you, Mama.
Yeah, I was saying that we are going to try. I told you at the beginning that I personally didn't want the micro support center, the government microfinance support center, to be the one to take charge of this fund to deal with the private teachers. Because there was history before about a fund for the public schools which had issues with the microfinance support center. So for that reason, that's why I had insisted that these teachers do make up their own circles, bring up their own leadership, and take their money and deal with it themselves. But now that they have failed to do it, and yet they go to the public and cry to the people as if there is somebody who's stopping them get their money, now we are going to have to ask the Microfinance Support Center to help them. And Microfinance Support Center has not refused, it has never refused, but we are the ones who were saying, let them deal with their money themselves. Now that they can't, we will take it up and ask the Microfinance Support Center to help them all without forming circles, I think. Because you see, circles must be formed and run by them. But if they can't do that, then they will continue to borrow from the Microfinance Support Center, I think. But that is something we now have to discuss again with Microfinance Support Center and hear their own method that they consider could work.
All advocating for the girl child, adding to your voice, advocating for the girl child to remain at school. We are not encouraging pregnancy, but we are trying as much as possible those who are pregnant to get back to school, as you said. So I just wanted to add that all together with the media, let's advocate for the girl child, because this is the month to advocate for them to be at school. I thank you.
Because it is a big shame to see that while the children are at home, it is the time when most girls have got I don't know whether they call it prematurely pregnant, but it is the time that girls have been really suffering and being forced into marriage and all that. So we have to, and I want to ask the media to help us really. We have to mobilize our communities to know that they have a responsibility to their children. their children are not just supposed to be sold off to bring some money or cows or goats or whatever. These are human beings in their own rights. They are supposed to be taken care of until they decide to get married. That's what is a normal thing to do. But the outcry that has been in the country to open schools most of the time has been because people say, look at what is happening to the girls. But how can we really make schools the safe haven for the children who have families? Really, what is happening to our families? And so, as I have said before, the media, you need to help us to also talk to our own people, the communities, to know that they have a responsibility to their children. They shouldn't be pushed to school, to government, as if they are coming from nowhere. So, as we talk about the girl child and the day of the girl child, you must also realize that that day of the girl child is mostly for African countries. You don't see it in other countries. It's the Africans who don't take care of their girls, who don't take care of, you hear the child, the African child, there is also that. So we must really know that time has come when Africans can't be a burden on the world anymore. We must know that people are tired of having to take care of Africans as if we are not human beings like others. How do other people help themselves? Why can't we do the same? Yes, please.
Efforts were made to adapt the materials to special needs. The second set, which was covering the entire academic year. So the materials, we did some of them in the various soft forms, and they were uploaded on the ministry websites, but also those that were brailled and the large prints, and I think mainly the large prints and the braille, and those that were for the various categories. Because the categories of special needs, Mama, are varied. We have the blind children, we have the deaf children, we have also the partially blind and the dyslexia and all those. So there were efforts, and these were already even distributed in the various schools where these children are. And also the GPE funds were able to procure the different gadgets that they use to actually access and study those materials, and those were also distributed to the various schools where these children are. So they were very good effort, and indeed they were catered for. We may not have exhausted all the slow learners and whatever the categories, but the major categories that we all know were catered for, and even the materials are, as we talk now, on the website of the ministry. And the Uganda National Examinations Board, also National Curriculum Development Center, in the MP players and whatever, different categories. So that effort, government did it, and I want to thank you, Mama, and for your leadership to have been able to enable us. The first short one, which was for revision, which we did in the first instance, efforts were not made, but the second one, which covers the entire academic year, efforts were made, and they are there.
Because when we say we are opening at the beginning of the year, we are working out the sequence of how things will happen up until then. And please trust us that we won't just say things are happening this day, because we know that the parents want to also prepare and all that. We will give you this information, but we are working on it right now. And so I'm sorry, I can't give you those details right now.
The media, that if children can go to churches, children can go to markets, why not to go to schools? Are they not going to pick virus from the markets and bring to the grandparents? Mama, I just want to clarify that scientific evidence shows that transmissions of this virus take place more to a closed environment compared to an open environment. When you compare the market, which is an open environment, to a classroom, there is a great difference. Children will get more virus within the classroom. Anybody can get more. That's why we sit in open environment compared to when we sit in a closed environment. 2, the duration of stay in one place matters. In the church, you take 1 hour, at most 2 or 3 hours. But here in the classroom, this child sits in the same seat from morning up to 4, in between breaks and lunch break. If this teacher is not vaccinated, the same another teacher comes, another one comes, another one, and the children are seated. So I think that question is really, really not logical enough. And unfortunately, the media is propagating about it, that if children can go to, you can send them to the market. Why not to sit in classroom? That's why His Excellency the President is basing on scientific evidence on this analysis. So I thought I could clarify that bit of it, because at one time I was on Radio 1, they asked me, and I made this clear, people should not compare the market, the church, to the classroom environment. I thank you, Mama.
317 million, which they received far back in the financial year of 2014-2015. So the issue still stands. Thank you.
Paulette Young. I am a teacher and I come from the east in a district called Kataha, and I serve in Soroti City. After all the process which Dr. Mulindwa narrated, I was elected to be the chairperson of the National Private Schools Teachers Association. Mama, I have put our thoughts in writing. And when I was arriving, that document was received at the gate, and maybe it is on your table or not, but it's a 3-page document, and it is giving the chronology of how we came into existence. And how, like Dr. Mulindwa explained, that the other groups were found not representative enough. And government thought of forming an association which could be representative enough. And we came into existence. Then we were given all that mandate as it was explained. As we speak, for the last 2 weeks, we have been working with the Microfinance Support Center to see to it that the money gets to the teachers. And if all had gone well, we had already written that by 14th of October, we're going to launch the first distribution of the money to the teachers in the private schools. The biggest surprise of all is what Dr. Mulindwa explained, that the other groups which were said earlier on were not representative enough. After learning that you had written to Ministry of Finance to release the money to a Microfinance Support Center to go to the teachers, wrote a letter objecting that, and the ministry called us yesterday to try to harmonize. Now, where the problem came from is that if we are to agree that we form another committee, it means we are going to nullify the whole process which the ministry was involved in. And that's why we said maybe we can involve some of them. So my request is this, as much as we are saying we want, the idea is there. On behalf of all the teachers, it is very true the teachers are going through a lot of trouble. That's a fact. I would request that you give us one last chance, maybe this time around, one last chance, so that we can be able to get this money. So all the formulas, we have worked them out of them, how we're going to give the money. Yesterday I gave an interview. We had a formula that each district circle was going to get 100 million, each city circle Each municipality was going to get 50 million. Then from the district circle, every school already has an association right now, as it was guided by the ministry. And the school association would get the money from the district circle. As we speak, those circles are being formed. My dismay and my heart was broken. How I'm going to explain to the teachers who have labored, even in these 2 years without any money, to try as much as possible to form circles. And what is going to be told to them is that whatever you did has been nullified. I think it's going to be very disappointing. It happened to us, Mama, during the time of Emioga. When we're now opening circles and we're opening accounts, that is the day we're told that you teachers in private schools are not part of Emioga. Get back. It was so painful. We really suffered, and I really want to say and explain it here on behalf of the teachers that we have gone through a lot. I would request one last chance, if possible. We will deliver this formula, which we have discussed, and then see maybe if it does not work. But in my view, it was going to work because it is from the grassroots where the teacher is, and that's why the teacher was going to get the money from. Like I said, all what I've said is in writing here. And we have given proposals in the last page of what needs to be done. I may not be able to go through all of it, but I've written it there. Thank you so much, Mama.
Thank you. We say no, then you will know. Now, as we conclude, I wondered whether Honorable Mshep would like to say something to us since he's here. No? Okay, Mr. Mubawara, you want to say anything since you people are here? No? Fine.
Mama, may I make my prayer? Mom, may I make my quality of the country? We determine the quality of education we give. When a message goes out that we have disorganized, we have failed it, even to organize ourselves into an association, it's terribly embarrassing. To Paul Etiang, I want to pray.
Paul Etiang, are you related to the former Paul Etiang? Sorry, Honorable Myungo.
No,
I just
okay,
wondered.
Thank you, Mama.
Paul Etiang, before he goes back to Katakwi, make sure you organize us, the teachers. Instead of having this money to be politicized, the teachers are suffering. This disorder is not acceptable. Paul, if you fail to organize the teachers, call me, I'll help you.
Thank you.
Good.
Good day.
That's an offer.
Mama, before Irene comes up to closing prayer, there's an announcement. The World Teachers Day, which is usually commemorated on 5th October, was supposed to be presided over by His Excellency the President, but due to...
Father, we thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the rain, because we know that it's a blessing. Thank you, Lord, for the first event we had, the symbolic handover of vaccines to our teaching in the education sector. Lord, we want to thank you that you're sending us provision, you're sending us support, and that, Lord, as the months roll by, we'll have the sector reopen safely. Thank you, whatever remains to be clarified. Lord, we dedicate each and every issue into your mighty able hands. Your word says, unless you build a house, we labor in vain. So we invite you, we continue to invite you in this sector. The anxiety in the public, the parents, you have good plans for the learners, you have good